putting up a requested fly today. This is a European wet fly. I think it's specifically in the UK, but I may be wrong. This is called the Invicta. A longtime follower requested that I do this, and it's an elegant fly. It's a very interesting fly to tie and has some challenges to it. This one's a little smaller. This is a size 10, which I'll talk about a little bit more when I do the video. But there's a lot of different versions on the Invicta. I think the original had a dubbed like a yellow seal fur body. I've seen some in olive as well, but this is the gold Invicta, which is just a Mylar body. So that's the gold Invicta, and I'm going to get started. Start the gold Invicta by placing my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3399 in a size 10. Going with a smaller size hook on this, I've been tying on larger size hooks, but the primary reason is the Invicta has a throat that is made from blue jay. The thing is, these little blue jay feathers right here don't have very long barbs on them. This feather here has some, but I don't know that that would be quite big enough for, say, a size 4 or size 6 hook. That said, you can instead, if you want something larger, or if you don't have blue jay, you can use some blue dyed guinea, as well as I'm tying some of these in a larger size. This is on a size 4 hook. I'm just using some blue hen saddle that I have. You could also use some blue Schlappen if you want to. But I think the contrast is one of the things that they're going for in that, so the blue guinea might be a better alternative. But that's why I'm using a size 10 hook, because I wanted to use the blue jay with this. So I'll debarb the hook. I'm going to attach my thread. For thread, I'm using a Danville 6/0 in red. I've seen some Invictas tied where it's just black thread. I liked the look of the red thread, so that's what I'm going with. Attach my thread, run it down to just past the point of the hook. Does not have a tip on it, but we do have a tail. The tail is made from golden, not golden pheasant, but ringneck pheasant, golden crest. What you want to do when you do this is you want to, some people get frustrated with these feathers trying to just get that nice curve, because it kind of goes in different ways. First off, get yourself a feather that's big enough. Even on this size 10 hook, using a little feather like this, especially if you don't have experience with the pheasant crest, can be very frustrating because it's small. So use a larger feather, and what you'll do is about halfway up that feather, you're just going to put in a wrap here, and this is just to collect it. Put another one just to collect it along the hook shank. Then we can pull this feather and even rotate this just a little bit as we pull it, so that we're getting the curve in the right orientation, and then I'm getting the length that I want. I want a length of about a shank, or at least maybe the shank plus the eye for this. And see, then we can put a couple of tight turns here to really secure that in place. Then put one wrap in at the base. That will help prop it up, and another to secure it. That is a lot easier to deal with this feather that way. Again, this small hook and everything, this is just representing some color as this is swinging through the water, so it doesn't have to have that beautiful nice sweep to it. Trim this the length of the body. Next, I'm tying in my rib. For rib, I am going to use a This is just a Danville gold wire in a medium. I'm going to attach that in with just one wrap. I want that tip to be about the length of the body. Don't pull it out from underneath your thread. In the body, I'm using a holographic gold tinsel. This is a UTC holographic medium gold tinsel. I like the look of the holographic, so that's why I'm mostly going with this. You could use a large if you want. It'll cover a little bit more real estate, but I'm just going to use a medium on this smaller hook. I'm going to tie that in pretty much the length of the body. I want to make certain I have that secured all the way down the end of the body, and then I'll come forward. Nice touching turns to make certain I have a smooth underbody for that tinsel. A little bit of wax on my thread. The tinsel body, you want to make certain that when you're coming around that first wrap here, you're just covering up any thread wraps. And then as we come forward, you can overlap just a little bit. You could also do a double layer of this if you wanted to. The idea is just to make certain you're getting all those thread wraps covered up. Secure that in about an eye length behind the eye of the hook. Throw away the excess. Now going to wrap forward just a little bit, securing that tag end of that tinsel, because I don't want that to pop out from under that thread at any time. The hackle on the Invicta is just a furnace hackle, at least that's what I'm using. And again, I'm not certain the Invicta, it's my understanding the original had a dubbed body like a yellow seal's fur. Most of the ones that I've seen out there are gold or silver. I've also seen some that were olive. So you could do this with a dubbed body if you want, but I think it still uses a furnace hackle. Now, this furnace hackle that I'm going to use, what I want to do is I'm going to secure the butt end in up here by the eye. Right where the brown hackle fibers stop is where I'm going to secure that in. So I'm going to cut this rachis right about there. I'm going to cut the barbs off on the bottom so that I have a little bit of an anchor. And you'll notice I'm not wrapping it in right at the bottom of the barbs. I'm actually wrapping up just a little bit more, and the reason for that is that when I go to wrap this in, I don't have barbs that are wrapped right along the hook shank that will stick out backwards. I'm going to put 2 turns of this hackle in for a collar because I left some of the rachis bare. As soon as I start to wrap that in, you'll notice that those barbs stick out a nice 90 degree from the hook shank. So 2 wraps for a collar, and then I'm going to open that up and palmer it down in about 4 wraps for the body. When I get down at this last wrap right here, I'm going to bring this around at the top. I'm going to then take my wire and bring my wire over that hackle to secure it, and I'm just going to lay the hackle pliers and the hackle on the vise right there. Now I'm going to come forward in about 4 to 5 wraps, securing all of those hackles down. Don't worry about the hackle fibers, they'll move out of the way. I get to in front of that collar, I'll then wrap that wire in. Once it's secured, I can brace the hook and I can twist that wire to break it off. And I'm going to secure that a little bit more with some more thread wraps. And I'm going to wrap just 2 or 3 wraps backwards open that up for my throat and my wing, and that gets on that collar all, none of the barbs are sticking forward. They're all either perpendicular or sloped backwards. Now, the reason that I tied the hackle in this way, it's one way that you could do this. I could have tied it in by the tip and just ran it up here and cut it off. A lot of people do this way. I have intermittent results with it. Often when I then take the hackle out of the pliers, well, first off, some people will wrap the wire over, and then while they're holding on to that wire here, they'll just pop that off. I don't have good luck with that, because then as you're wrapping the wire in, if you lose any tension on that wire, it comes back and that whole rachis pops out from underneath and it starts to unravel back here. So I wrap it forward, the rib, and put it in place first. Even then, when I pop this off half the time, I end up with it popping out from underneath that wire. Maybe I'm just not wrapping it in tight enough. I don't know. So rather than pop that off, I'm just going to come in here and just cut that close, and that is good enough. So that is our hackle. So as I mentioned, the throat on the Invicta is Blue Jay. So I selected a feather here that has some longer barbs to it. And the reason is it's just easier for me to handle and to manage if I have them a little bit longer. Small hooks like this, it's harder for me to reach in here, especially with these hackles that are in the way, and do a wrap from underneath. So I like to flip this over, kind of get these barbs inside the gap there. Sometimes you have to fiddle with this a little bit because you get barbs that will come forward on you, and then just wrap that in right on the underside. Got just a little close to the eye of the hook there, but I think I can get those down there. Okay, now I'm ready to tie in the wing. The wing on this is Hen Pheasant, and I'm using the Hen Pheasant primarily because it is small enough or short enough for a nice wing on this size 10. On the larger size that I showed you, this size 4 here, that's actually turkey. So again, a lot of times as you go up from in hook size, you just have to change the materials you're using. You're still looking for kind of the same effect. You're looking for that mottled, brown and white mottled look. So you just change materials. I have 2 slips that I've cut out. I'm going to tie these in a little bit different. A lot of times you've seen me in different videos take these wings and I will put them side by side and then set them down to tie them in. Problem is when you have, especially a smaller hook like this, when you have this hackle palmered in there, a lot of times the wing just doesn't set down in the hackles. So there's another way you can tie these wings on. I'm taking the 2 slips here. I got the dull side facing you. I get the tips even like this. I'm going to hold these right up on top of the fly like this, getting my tips about the right length. And then I'm going to just roll these down over those barbs. When I get that rolled down, I can then, when it's sitting on top of the hook, do a pinch and loop, see how it looks. Yeah, sometimes what happens is, and that's what happened this time, the slip itself will roll in on itself. So this particular slip right here, don't know if you can see this, but it folded in half on itself. That happens sometimes because of the way you're holding these things and what you're trying to accomplish. It's not a technique that I have done a whole lot. I like it, and it has a really, really interesting look to it, but I haven't quite got it down yet. So I make certain I got that. Wrap that in. There we go. That's a little better. No, that's too long. And I've got about one more time that I can try to get these in. I can tell they're getting kind of not torn up, but just it will get kind of torn up if you're not careful. Matter of fact, I'm going to get a couple of new slips here. Going to just clip this out here on this side. And then the other side. Just like your other slips, when you take them off of these wings, or I should say off the quills, you want to make certain tips are lined up, and then you want to make certain that they're the same width. And in this case, they are. So now I'll hold these up here, watch the tail length, roll those down. And I'm going to go back to see if I can't get this. One more time. The barbs keep rolling on me. Maybe it's the pheasant. I don't know. Try this one more time. There you go. We're going to go with that. As you can see, the wings tend to go around the hackle barbs, and as opposed to trying to set in them and getting kicked up at an abrupt angle. Then we're just going to clean this area up for the head. Flatten my thread. Put in a whip finish. Because I used the red thread on this, I'm going to put some head cement on both sides. But I don't have any red lacquer. So what I'll do is I'll come back as soon as that dries and I'll put some hard as hull. Just a clear varnish finish, that's all. I'll put a couple coats of hard as hull on that, and that will make that look a little bit shinier and nicer. So that's the gold Invicta fun fly. Again, 10 is a little challenging for me and my big fingers, but I wanted to work with the Blue Jay, and as I said, you can very easily with the turkey also, you can get some really, really nice results with the turkey. So if you'd rather go with a larger size hook, use some turkey, especially if you don't have the pheasant. and that will work just as well. But that's the gold Invicta. Thank you for watching. Thanks for joining me at Devise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.